printing your photos? Easy. File, print. Nope, not that easy. First off, you should print your photos. No matter what skill level you're at, your work is worth printing, and I promise you'll be rewarded by seeing it on something that's not a digital screen. Now, printing can be a little bit complicated. It seems like something that's really straightforward, but really when you get down to it, there's a lot of little details that can make your photos not turn out great. And trust me, I've experienced the worst of it. I've printed everything and seen that sometimes photos are too dark, or they really just don't come out the right color, or they don't have enough detail. So I want to spend some time today to give you a couple quick tips to help you master your photos for printing. So the first thing that you got to do is make sure that your computer or your monitor is set up so that you're going to be able to actually see your printing surface in the right kind of light. And what I mean there is, first off, you're going to have to bring your brightness down. I usually bring my brightness to about 100 nits, which on my iMac Pro is kind of the third or fourth brightness click. And the reason you do this is because your monitor's display is backlit, and the paper or the medium that you print your photos on is not going to be. So this helps you just get to a better view of how bright the image will actually be. Now the other thing I like to do, which you can see I've done on this, is I like to make sure that my background in Lightroom is set to white. And the reason I like to do this is because it gives me a good idea of what the absolute white point is, and it's an easy reference, so as I'm editing I can see, hey, if this is supposed to be 100% white, how does it look compared to my border? Now, one of the things that people will tell you when it comes to printing is to make sure that you have a calibrated monitor. And what this means is that your monitor is actually showing colors in an accurate type of way. Now, I've got this iMac here, and to be frank, I think I've calibrated it one time. That's probably not the best practice. People will tell you that you should calibrate a lot more often than that, twice a year, once a year. I don't. Now what I do is I double check kind of across my devices, so my phone, my iPad, to make sure that the image color looks like it's coming across similar on all of the devices. And then the other thing I do is if I print and I see things are off, then maybe it's time for me to check my display. So in practice, I don't calibrate my monitors often. If you have a calibration tool, it's obviously worth it to use it. Now, beyond just calibrating your monitor, you can actually set up Lightroom to show your image in the kind of way that it'll actually look once it's printed on paper and through ink. And the way you do this is through ICC Profiles. Now, ICC Profiles are essentially just color profiles that are added to an image to reflect the ink and paper type that it's ultimately going to be printed on. So depending on where you get your photos printed or the printer and ink and paper that you use, you should be able to download these ICC profiles. So for instance, with me, I've got some ICC profiles downloaded here. You can see a couple from Sol Digital, a couple from White House Custom Color, and one from White Wall here, well, two from White Wall. And what they do is they reflect again how your print will look once it's developed on this type of ink or paper. So in this instance, this is Fujiflex, which isn't printed, it's a developed paper, but you can see it maintains a lot of its contrast. Now by comparison, if I look at this heavy cotton photo rag fine art paper, it loses a little bit more contrast and the colors are a little bit more subdued. By the way, in case you want to know, the way to actually do this is when you're in the Develop tab, you can press S and it will turn on soft proofing. You can also click on View and come down to soft proofing. I like to just hit S. Figure out what you're going to print your photo on, download the ICC profile that reflects both the printer ink type that you're using and the paper. And again, you should be able to download these from any of the companies you print through. Now, once I have this ICC profile set up, my monitor's at a nice low brightness, I know it's fairly calibrated, I'm going to make some adjustments to my brightness and then to my contrast and color. So as you can see, I'm bringing up the brightness a little bit there, and I'm going to just touch my temperature. So once I have my color and contrast set up, I'm going to actually just bring this into Photoshop to manage the size and then add some sharpening. So this will bring it over into Photoshop. Perfect. So now that I got this into Photoshop, I'm going to look at the image size. And the way I'm going to do this is click on this image size piece, and it'll show me automatically what the maximum size in inches. By the way, you can change this if you're not in inches. It'll show you the maximum size in inches that you can print at this resolution. And this is 300 ppi, which is actually the resolution that I want to print at in this case. You can probably bump this all the way up to something like 350 ppi, but typically most printers aren't doing significantly better than that, and you're also probably not going to be able to see much more. So in this case, it looks like I can print this photo up to 13.78 inches on both sides. If I try to print this at 350 pixels per inch, you'll see the image size would actually have to get bigger, and that's because Photoshop basically has to scale up. It has to upscale the image, and it's making stuff up. So I wouldn't want to do this because I want to just stick with what the natural resolution is. So we'll bring it back down to 300. Let's say I want to print this at 12 inches by 12 inches, and I can bring it. So if I try to bring it to 350 ppi, you can see that the image size is bigger than it normally was. So I got to bring this down a bit. Let's try 340. Boom. So now I've got a resolution that fits within the natural scale, or what originally the scale of this photo was. And I've got the sizing that I want. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Now the last thing I want to do is just sharpen this image up. And the way I'm going to do it is with a high pass filter. So I'm going to duplicate this layer here. And then I'm going to go up here to filter, down to other, and then high pass. Now the key to a high pass filter, at least when I go to sharpen, is what it's doing is it's looking for the high contrast edges. And less is kind of more in this instance, I think. So you can see that's got some image or detail kind of picked out where there's really high contrast images. So where the water is meeting the shoreline here. And I'm going to just play with this radius here. And you can see if I bring it up, a lot of detail comes in. I don't want that. I want to just barely be able to see that edge. So actually where I had it right around 2.3 is where I'm going to leave it here. And I'll click OK. And then I'm going to just change the blend mode to overlay. So now you can see with and without that high pass filter, it adds just a little bit of sharpness, and it adds it to the areas that already have contrast. It doesn't add a ton of sharpness down here where there isn't much contrast, you can see, but it does in the trees. So let's take a little zoom in here. So again, here's with the high pass filter, and here's with it turned off. Just a little bit of detail, and then you can look also here in the water without it, with it. So now with the water here, I actually want to take out some of the high pass filter. And the way I'm going to do this is just a really simple method. I'm going to take my quick selection tool, quickly select the water, just mask out the shoreline here. And this doesn't need to be perfect at all. Then I'm going to go up to here, grab my eraser tool, and I'm just going to erase that high pass filter layer right where it has it. All right, deselect that. So again, here's the final product with the high pass filter, just a little bit of sharpening. So now we're ready to save. So again, just to recap, all I've done is I've taken this image and adjusted the brightness, contrast, and color based on that ICC profile of the printer ink and the paper I'll use. I brought it into Lightroom to size it how I'd want it, and then I added a little bit of sharpening. That's it. So now we'll go here, we'll hit File, and I'm going to just export this. I'm going to export this as a JPEG. I'm going to make sure my quality is set all the way to 7. You can see it's got the full scale. I'll hit export. Boom. We're ready to go. That's it. Easy enough. I hope these tips are helpful. I know when I started trying to print, it was hard to kind of figure out what I really needed to do to dial in my photos for printing. Let me know if you've got any other tips that you typically do ahead of printing, or if you've got any questions around the process. I'd love to hear a little bit more from you.